Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. And as I like to say, we're all on a journey to Chap Nirvana, the destination where we're all content and happy and we're joyful in our life experience. And that's not always the case all of the time for everybody that we encounter. And as a result, I often like to answer questions from viewers on this channel, people who write in and they're looking for a little avuncular advice from a gentleman who's been down the path of life, reached mid-age and is happy to share some of my experiences to help you on your journey. And that's exactly what's happened. A gentleman who's written to me, and it's not his actual name. He's asked me to sort of keep his name out of this, but I'm going to use the name Albert. And Albert has written this. He says, I am a 29-year-old man with a wife and a few kids. As the years have gone by, as I've grown older, I found that I love all things classical and traditional in life. My values, such as preferred style of dress and love of classical music, are quite important to me, and I'm quite old school, perhaps even on the border of eccentric as regards to my clothing. I like to have my suit coats a little longer than normal, which gives an old school sort of vibe. And what's more, I have a unique career and vocation, a somewhat traditional one. I don't want to discuss what it is specifically, but it has me working quite a bit from home and really seeing other people throughout the week in person. Now, what this all amounts to is I've been finding lately I'm quite alone most of the time. Don't get me wrong, I do have my family, my wife, my kids, who give me daily company, and for that I am extremely thankful. But beyond that, friendship, daily interaction with people in the mundanity of life, I rarely experience that. Now, part of this is because of the nature of my work and career, which I'm coming to terms with. But even when I do get out and about, I still tend to feel alone. Culturally, in terms of my values, my desired way of dressing, etc., it's hard to put this briefly, and I think only an anecdote or an example may help to show what I mean. I'd love to go for a walk through town in a suit and see other chaps in their suits and feel part of a wider group, even if I speak with no one. Simply put, I don't feel like I belong to a larger culture or group of men who value the things that I do, who are pursuing the same things that I am, who want the same things that I do. Now, most of the time I cope with this. I do have a small church that I go to in my town, which helps. And throughout the week, I find joy in pursuing my passions, my hobbies, and dressing how I want. But I do find myself wishing sometimes I was part of a larger group, like the old days, to put it nostalgically, when men commuted to work wearing their suits, packed into the subway, surrounded by older men wearing their suits with their older values. Combined with this desire, I sometimes hear that men today are especially suffering from loneliness, which I can relate to. So I guess this leads up to my question. Is what I am experiencing normal, and is this a perfectly fine way of going about my life? Being, relatively speaking, something of a loner? Or is it truly a risk? Something I should try to alleviate? And if it is a risk, should I try, is it even possible to sort this situation out? And that's from Albert. Now, Albert, when I read your sort of question to me, your situation, I found many parallels with it, with my own life, actually, even though I'm, nearly twice your age. You're only 29, I'm 55. But I think what you're going through spans all of the mansphere, or whatever we wish to call it, the population of men in the Western world, more developed countries. And it's a distressingly common situation that I'm hearing about more and more all the time, because people write to me regularly. I interact in our Chap's Guide or Nirvana Club WhatsApp group, and people often talk about this sense of feeling alone. And I think that has galloped on at pace over the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, it's only really since the global pandemic that we have seen working from home such an incredibly common thing these days. And it's gone from being an oddity for a very small number of people to an expectation for many people. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, you know, we can discuss that elsewhere, but the point being, I think loneliness and isolation in men of all ages is actually far more widespread than we're prepared to accept. Statistically, though, there is no doubt, if we look at the UK and the US as areas of, you know, points where we can draw data from. In the UK, a government survey took place a little while ago. 18% of men, I'll reflect on that, 18% sounds small, but it's nearly 1 in 5. 1 in 5 men will say they don't have a single close friend that they share their life with. And 32%, a shade below a third of all men, would say, I don't have any form of best friend in my life at all. And by best friend, I would equate that to being an intimate confidant, somebody you can ring up and talk to and share experiences with. A third of all men have nobody in their life of that kind. And even worse, 10% admit that they would never actively admit to being lonely, even though they feel the crushing hand of loneliness on their lives. And you know, you can draw, there's data upon data upon data about men's loneliness. Another UK survey, 55% of men feel lonely all of the time. And it goes on. You know, I could read data like this for 20 minutes because there's so much of it out there, which demonstrates that loneliness is an all-pervasive situation which is affecting us fellows. Now, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Let's talk about that. I tell you one thing, when it comes to our health and the impact that loneliness has, it is like a hammer blow on your quality of life situation. So whether you're a younger chap, whether you're in midlife as I am, whether you're older, you know, it's going to impact upon the quality of your life. Statistically, right, UCLA research demonstrates that taken over 20 years, 2,500 men, part of this research survey, loneliness increased their likelihood of cancer by more than 10%. So if you are lonely as you go through life, you are more likely to get cancer, 1 in 10 greater chance of getting cancer. And it also absolutely has been shown over and over again to degrade your mental cognitive ability as we go along. Depression, cognitive decline, even things like heart disease, dementia, weakened immunity systems, these are all significantly impacted by loneliness. Premature death, you know, stalks you if you are a lonely person. I mean, there's an old statistic which I've used many times in my charity world, which is still statistically true today, that if you are chronically lonely, it has the equivalence on your health of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And I think we'd all agree that smoking 15 cigarettes a day is a massive impact on your overall health. Well, it's the same effect that being lonely as we go through life. So why is it happening? You know, I think it's worth just looking at it. And we've kind of touched on it, you know, the changing work and cultural structures that we are part of now. I mean, personally, taken as me myself, I prefer to go out to work every day so that my home is my sanctuary. It's a place that I go to. It's not where I work, and it's somewhere which you know, is specific for happy experiences at home. I like going to a workplace. Now, I don't do that right now. I work almost exclusively from home, except when I go out and, you know, give talks and things like that. But generally speaking, right, when I worked in my full-time professional life, I went to a place of work. I interacted with other people. Not only was it a professional banter, which I had with people, but social chat. I learned about events. I made friends, acquaintances that will stand you in better stead as, you know, terms of loneliness and isolation. And although these days people fight for this right to work from home, that's fine for many people, right? They love the fact that they can be, men can love the fact of being more involved in the upbringing of their children and so on. And I was there, I was that guy. But that's fine for many of us. But for a lot of younger guys who are more, you know, less settled in their lives, who are perhaps not married, who are perhaps not senior in their jobs, who earn a smaller amount of money, they have small homes, right? They have apartments. Here in the UK, we have this term a bedsit, where Your bed, your sitting room, your kitchen is in all one open plan flat or apartment. Now, if that's your situation, working from home can be like putting you in this devastating cave all of the time, where you're working at your dinner table, your breakfast table, where you also socialize, where you sit down and watch the television in the evening, where you go to bed, where you make your food. You have no delineation between work and home and social. And for people, and let's be honest, it's probably the majority of people who find themselves in that situation, working from home has been a hammer blow and has affected loneliness and isolation perhaps more than anything, because you no longer physically interact with your workmates. You might speak to them on Zoom, you might have a monthly meeting or something like that, but it's not the same. You know nothing about their family lives. You don't sit there and say, how's Martha on the weekend? How was her school recital? Things like that. You just don't get that because you lose that interaction. Masculinity as well plays a part in this. Over the last 5 years, I would say, we're entering a period of, often we see these influencers, and I'm not going to name any, but you know who they are, who are promoting this stoic masculinity. We should never complain. We should bear the weight of the world on our shoulders as men. And it is actually removing from us our ability to be emotional and empathetic and share our situations and our vulnerabilities with other people. And if we're not into that, talking with others, saying, a bit down at the moment, love to have somewhere to go on the weekend. Oh, I know, I'm having a barbecue, come round my house. We're not doing that. We're not sharing. We're neglecting ourselves, and we are neglecting others, because empathy is about being interested in other people. And when we're not interacting with others, because we're stoic, and somebody says to you, I'm going through a really tough patch. My mother died recently and I just can't seem to shake off the fog which is affecting me in my life. And I think to myself, you should be tougher. You should bear this. You shouldn't share this. It's internalize it. Get it in there. We don't want to hear that. That's not manly to share your emotions. And that is a permeating sort of sense which is going on in the world. And I think the online shift to socialization has a lot to do with it as well, because in recent years much interaction has gone from in person to online, and as I've said, it's not the same. You don't have the chats with people that online that you would have in real life. You don't sit there and talk about the kids and the hobbies and other things that you've got going on. You just tend to enact your business and leave. And even if you're part of online groups, Facebook and the various other platforms which encourage people to interact, it's not the same. It's a very superficial interaction, and it's not true interaction, because you only display to people what you want them to see of yourself. And if you don't want to be vulnerable, you don't want to show them that you're going through a tough time or you're feeling particularly lonely, you won't do it. And they won't know that you're feeling like that, so they won't be able to reach out and help you. So the shift towards online socialization away from physical socialization has really impacted loneliness and isolation of men of all ages, from Albert's age, who's only 29, to men of my age, who is 55, because I can tell you, I empathize with everything that Albert has said here. I'm 55, my life journey has taken me in the military for a decade, law enforcement for 23, 24 years, and in those jobs I moved repeatedly. I moved in between countries, often in the armed forces. I moved countries in the UK. I moved from Wales to England in the UK. I changed from organisations. You move from location to location as time goes on, and you just simply don't have that same interaction. And I haven't. And I have felt that. And I've moved towns. I don't live in the town that I was born and brought up in. I got married. I moved to my wife's locality. And I know nobody here. And I've had to build a life again from scratch from my mid-30s when I moved into this area. So I know exactly how you feel. And as a man, as you can gather, who likes to dress well, I know what you mean when you say you can walk the streets and not encounter another person who looks the same. You would love to be amongst men who would say to you, I like your tie. It just doesn't happen in the area in which I live either. And I'd be very surprised if it happened in an area where people live these days, because it's something which is no longer commonplace. And dressing well is important, not just for your profession and for the way that people perceive you in life. But we'll never forget, I talk about it repeatedly, enclothed cognition. It's not about vanity. It's not about dressing to be seen as bigger and better than other people. Putting nice clothes on your body and feeling good about yourself does an amazing thing for you. Loads of research. And I'll give you one just to underlie it. 2014, Yale in America. Studies showed that men in suits negotiated better when working with other people, were treated with more seriousness, and felt stronger in their own skills and abilities by dressing well. So if you dress well, people treat you differently, and you treat yourself differently. You have more confidence, and you feel your abilities are strengthened. So isn't that a good enough reason to put good clothes on your body? So dressing well, feeling lonely, it's not a superficial thing. And I'm not here just to bleat about your problems alongside you. I'm going to give you 3 actionable tips that can help you in your situation, because it's helped me in mine. Now, my first actionable tip for you here is not rocket science. You could probably guess this yourself, but perhaps hearing me say it will be the spur to get you out there to do it if you're in this situation. I've done it myself, and I continue to do this all the time. And that is, I get out there and I find people who share the niche interests that I do, even if it involves traveling quite some distance to be a part of that group. Now, you've told us, Albert, that you kind of got a few things going on there. You like dressing well, you like classical music, you're a member of a religious group, right? A church. So you've got a few areas there which you've already got your toe in the water. What you've got to do is now explore them further, to expand them into your universe of activity. Now, I do this all the time, right? So dressing well, for a start, take that one. I've done something on that inside the last week. Now, through online activity, right, I became aware of a UK social group called the New Sheridan Club. I'd never heard of it before. It's a club which is a loose social group. They meet once a month. They have guest speakers who talk about sartorial matters. It's a London-based activity. They even have a tie. I'm even sporting the lapel badge today, just to show that this is something which I have done myself. I haven't been to one of their meetings yet. I've only joined it recently. But the point is, I'm always out there looking for avenues to expand my interests and my circle of buddies. Now, it's a 2-hour journey to London for me, but I'm prepared to do that maybe a few times a year if it brings me into the orbit of other people who share my interests and activities. Only next week, I'm being inducted into another group in London, the Worshipful Livery Group of Stationers, which is kind of a group for people who operate, in my instance, within the social media digital content creation world. So it'll bring me into a professional networking activity with other people who share my interests. Now, if I was to look locally, I'm sure there would be clubs and groups which would also share my interests, maybe not on the same scale as a capital city like London, but wherever you live, you're probably within a couple of hours of a large city or conurbation, big town, where there are likely to be groups of people who gather together who share your interests. And let me tell you one thing. If there aren't, and you know there are other people out there who share your interests, maybe you create a Facebook and gather some people together, right, online, if there isn't a niche group, you can make it happen. Make it so yourself. Just say, look guys, I'm going to be in this public house or this bar or coffee shop or wherever you might meet between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on Tuesday. If you're interested in this subject, come along. You'll be amazed. People will turn up. You will make new friends without even realizing that you've done so. Now, when it comes to dressing with intention, right, I got the sense in your letter that you were finding it almost a guilty pleasure to dress well. You feel that you're outside the norm to a degree, that you feel like an outlier, an outsider in society because of choices you've made in your attire. Put that out of your mind, right, and start to practice enclothed confidence daily. It doesn't matter what you're doing, even if you're working from home, right? And all you're going to be doing is sat in front of a computer, tapping away, working away, might have 1 or 2 Zoom calls during the day, whatever it might be. Dress well. Put your jacket, put your collar, put your tie on. Because don't forget what I said. You're dressing not for others. It's not about vanity. Enclothed cognition, you're dressing for you. Enclothed confidence, it boosts your confidence in all that you do. I find that when I sit in front of my computer wearing a shirt and tie, I adopt a different persona when I'm writing. It's the professional me, the serious me, the guy who's dressed with intention. That means I've brought business that day. If I was sat there in my pajamas or a sweatshirt, it's a different me that's turned up. So dress with enclosed confidence in mind every day. And the other thing you can do is start thinking about building micro connections as you go through life. You know, it might be something as simple as scheduling little check-ins with your neighbours, or somebody in town that you might know that you see every so often. Arrange to meet them for a coffee. Or, you know, you might go to a coffee shop and you might notice that there's a book club meeting there on a Tuesday, because they have the notice board with things going on. Why not? Go along, see what it's like. I've done that a few times. Right? I used to go to a book club in a bookstore in my town. I went along, I kind of enjoyed it, but it wasn't really my crowd of people. So do you know what I did? I started my own book club with people that I knew who would share my experiences and my sensibilities. It gives you an idea, getting out there, seeing things, to do things that might work in your life. Little micro connections. Always be open for avenues that might lead you in the path to the destination where you'd like to be. Contented in the way that you dress, and contented in the circle of friends that you have around you. The thing is, and my underlying point here, is don't think it's just going to happen, right? It's not something that's going to fall across your path. Like most things in life, you've got to go out there and you've got to work for it. You have got to put yourself in the situation that you're going to make new acquaintances, that you're going to feel more comfortable as you go through life dressed the way you are. And if you put that little bit of work in, as I have done, I'm pretty content in my life. I've got a good circle of associates. I'm building new relationships all the time, joining new clubs, meeting new people who share my ideas, my niche thoughts. And there'll be more, because next year I'll discover other things and other groups, and I'll join them, and I'll let other groups go as I move on to different paths in my life. It's a normal part of the journey. Be open to allow it to happen. Don't sit at home and say, woe is me, the world is moving forward and I'm stuck here. You've got to move forward with it. And in fact, get ahead of it. Be the one who sets things up. Set up the book club. Set up the coffee group for men in your church. Right? You be the guy who's the game changer, not just the one who waits for it to happen. And then you'll be a lot happier. So there we go. I hope it was of some help today. My own lived experiences in there as well. Now, if you would like to benefit from some of my avuncular observations in life, send me a question. Email's here. I'm the only guy who reads these emails. There's no judgment. And if I'm able to, I'll support you, maybe with a video, having a chat like this. It can be helpful. Don't forget, if you wish to come on the journey with me as well and see more of my personal journey to Chap Nirvana, you can become one of my patrons. You don't have to pay for that, by the way. Some of them are free, different tiers. But I do make exclusive content just for my patrons every week, several videos. If you want to be a part of that, the link to my Patreon page is in the show notes below. So, until the next time, dress well, move forward, be the game changer, and I'll see you soon.
To hear the sound of your wings, leave it